people sort of lose interest. They think, what happened? And the fact is, it takes a while. It takes a while to get the money, to acquire stuff, etc. These things don't happen overnight. And that is one of the real challenges, is to realize it helps to have a good, committed core group of people who are willing to sort of see it through. But yeah, it's also a challenge to recognize that it's going to take a while, which is why having other small things, doing other events and activities that you can do and be successful and feel good about, help you keep the interest and momentum.
And reinvigorate folks, give people a chance to just kind of drop out for a while.
And then to every so often, we just had our big sort of milestone award ceremony the other week, and it's also good every so often to sort of take a step back and to see where you've come. Because, again, when you're down doing it on a sort of daily basis, you sort of forget, well, have you had successes? Have you accomplished something? And just sort of taking stock can be a useful activity.
Yeah, that is, in terms of that, I know you're an evaluator by profession. What resources are out there to help folks with this whole area of neighborhood stabilization and change?
Well, that's a challenge. I mean, the fact is there aren't, I think, a lot of good resources out there. I mean, you've got Baltimore County, the Office of Community Conservation is a group that we've worked closely with, and they try to do a great deal. We've worked with...
So presumably, whatever county you're in Maryland, if you go to the county council or the county executive
well, but again, I think it'll vary from county to county. And that was sort of my point before, that I think particularly counties that have gone through a lot of growth, they're used to tackling issues of growth. I think they're still starting to come to terms with issues of how do you regrow something, because they just haven't had to face it before. Particularly now with the market changing, I think it's gonna be a real challenge for some of these places. Because they're not the same issues. You know, when you're sort of doing infill, when you're trying to change homes that are, you know, when you've got homes that were built in the 1940s and 1950s, you need to do things to them to fix them up. It's not just marketing them better, but it's also, you know, fixing up the plumbing, fixing up the electrical to make them more attractive to people.
That's right. Which takes money and which takes time.
It takes money, it takes time, and it takes resources. And again, it's something that traditionally we've left to the private sector, and typically the private sector does a good job with that sort of thing. But there may be cases, neighborhoods, where it doesn't happen as well. And so do you have the tools in place to sort of do that?
And also, how do you remain inclusive? How do you remain inclusive?
That's a challenge. And I think that's just... you just need to acknowledge that will be a challenge. Again, as I said, there will be, even in these kind of things, there will be winners and losers. If you fix a house, you know, if a house was a rental property and you buy it and fix it up and turn it into a single-family home, that may be good for the neighborhood. That may be bad for the family that was living there before.
It's true. They've got to find someone.
They've got to find, exactly. So I think you need to be aware of that and try to think about ways of doing it. You know, you don't want to drive everyone out of the community. I don't think you should drive everyone out of the community. So in Dundalk's case, we're trying to be aware of that. At the same time, it shouldn't be any one community's responsibility to be the only affordable housing for a county, for a region.
And in fact, that's destructive. It's destructive not only for the community, or the phrase out there is overconcentration.
It is, exactly.
Whether it's an overconcentration of group homes or subsidized units or whatever it is. Everybody loses.
Yeah, as I said, it becomes a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And that's typically what we see in lots of older communities. And again, these are challenges that I think urban places, you know, Baltimore City, other cities have been tackling for quite some time. I think it's something that more suburban places are just beginning to recognize. Whether it's a Dundalk, whether it's in Silver Spring, you know, they sort of saw their renaissance over the past several years. But it's been a challenge for these communities to figure out what to do.
Another challenge, which we'd be remiss if we didn't at least mention here, is BRAC. Could you tell us a little bit about BRAC? Because that's facing a lot of...
Sure. BRAC is the federal government several years ago decided to consolidate some of its military installations. So BRAC is Base Realignment and Closure Committee. Maryland was on the winning end, you could say. Both Fort Meade and the Aberdeen Proving Grounds will be recipients of a number of new jobs and installations. And so the challenge now is how do those communities sort of plan for that influx of people? in terms of both, where are they going to put the businesses, where will they do the roads, where will the people live, where will they do the schools.
It's coming. It's been delayed, but it's coming, right? That's the status?
Yes, it is coming. Again, with everything, these things will take some time. I know that I've heard stories, we've seen them in the paper, where there's been some reluctance of people to move, but they will be coming. And again, how will that sort of ripple throughout the entire region? Places like Dundalk are sort of midway in between. So will people move there, or will it be that as people are sort of pushed out from not being able to find housing in Anne Arundel or Harford County, they start to move back?
If Harford County doesn't build housing,
where will these people move to?
Where will they move to? They'll move to Baltimore County, or they'll move to Cecil,
and then if the people can't find that, and where do those people move? And it's that constant sort of moving back and forth. So yeah, I think it'll be a real. I know that the state, the counties have been trying to sort of plan for this, but it will be a real challenge for them.
Do you know a good source of information about BRAC at this point?
I know that both the state and the county have people who have been sort of tasked with.
So folks should contact.
They should contact their local governments or contact the state government. I know that they've got people who have been actively involved in trying to plan for this sort of stuff.
What's coming up? We got about 2 minutes left.
What's coming up? Well, for Dundalk, as I said, we've got a number of activities and things planned. One of the things that I mentioned that we're very excited about, there's a possibility of building 2 new high schools, which we think will be a real boost to our local communities. We're continuing to try and build more housing and support people in fixing places up. There will actually be in Turner Station, which is one of the oldest African. They are planning to do a charrette, an urban design process later this spring, so I think that'll be an exciting feature, and hopefully we'll be working with them to try and figure out how that neighborhood will develop and evolve.
That's great. We're about out of time. Could you give us that contact information one more time?
Sure. For the Dundalk Renaissance Corporation, it's www.dundalkusa.org, and the phone number is 410-282-0261.
Wonderful.
Don't have it memorized.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
For Neighborhood Beat, that's all we have time for today. I want to thank our guest, Mr. Scott Holupka, who is president of the Greater Dundalk Community Council and past president of the Dundalk Renaissance Corporation, for being our guest.
Thanks.
And for Neighborhood Beat, I want to thank you for tuning in. Let's try to be a good neighbor out there in all of our neighborhoods, and we'll see you next time.